The morning Daniel's life changed, nothing dramatic happened. No accident, no argument, no shocking phone call. Just a simple moment that should have meant nothing, but somehow meant everything. Daniel Harper was the kind of man people described as doing fine. At 39, he lived in a quiet suburb outside Columbus, Ohio. He worked as a project manager for a mid-sized logistics company. Steady paycheck, decent benefits, predictable hours. He owned a gray sedan that never broke down, a townhouse with neutral walls, and a life that looked complete from the outside. And yet, every morning, Daniel woke up with a tightness in his chest he couldn't explain. It wasn't panic, it wasn't sadness exactly. It was something quieter. He felt like he was watching his own life through thick glass, present but disconnected. His days followed the same pattern. Wake up at 6:15, shower, coffee, scroll through news headlines he barely processed, commute, meetings, emails, lunch at his desk, more meetings, drive home, microwave dinner, watch something he wouldn't remember, sleep, repeat. Sometimes, late at night, Daniel would lie in bed and ask himself a question that made him uncomfortable. Is this it? He didn't hate his job. He didn't hate his life. That was the problem. Everything was fine, comfortable, acceptable, and that somehow felt worse than struggle. He remembered being younger, 22, fresh out of college, when life felt open. Back then, he believed he had time to figure things out, time to chase something meaningful, time to become someone interesting. Now, time felt like something that was quietly slipping away. Daniel told himself the same things everyone else did. You should be grateful. Others have it worse. This is adulthood. But gratitude felt forced, and adulthood felt like an excuse. One Thursday morning, running late as usual, Daniel stopped at the same coffee shop he visited nearly every day. He ordered the same drink, paid with the same card, waited in the same spot near the pickup counter. That's when he noticed the man sitting by the window. The man looked to be in his late 70s, maybe early 70s. His hair was silver and neatly combed. He wore a worn brown jacket and held a small notebook in his hands. What caught Daniel's attention wasn't how he looked, it was how he was looking. The man stared out the window with a calm focus, like he was watching something important. Not his phone, not the people walking by, just the morning light hitting the street. Daniel didn't know why, but the image stayed with him. As he grabbed his coffee and turned to leave, the man looked up and smiled. Not a polite smile, but a genuine one. "Beautiful morning," the man said. Daniel nodded. "Yeah, I guess it is." He walked out, annoyed with himself for even noticing. But the next morning, the man was there again. Same seat, same notebook, same calm expression. And again, he said, "Beautiful morning." By the third day, something about the consistency bothered Daniel. Not in an irritating way, in a curious one. On the fourth morning, Daniel hesitated before leaving the counter. Then, without planning to do it, he walked over to the window seat. "Mind if I sit?" he asked. The man looked up, surprised, then smiled. "Not at all." Daniel sat, unsure why he had done it. "I'm Daniel," he said. "Arthur, nice to meet you." They sat in silence for a moment. Daniel felt awkward. He wasn't good at small talk with strangers. Arthur closed his notebook and looked at him. "You look like someone carrying a lot of weight." Daniel laughed softly. "I don't think so. My life's pretty easy." Arthur nodded slowly. "Those are often the heaviest lives." Daniel frowned. "What do you mean?" Arthur didn't answer right away. He looked out the window again. "Tell me," Arthur said calmly, "when was the last time you felt truly awake?" Daniel opened his mouth to respond, then stopped. He couldn't remember. Over the next few weeks, Daniel found himself arriving early to the coffee shop. Not for the coffee, but for Arthur. Their conversations were never long, but they stayed with Daniel throughout the day. Arthur never gave advice. He didn't tell stories about success or failure. He didn't preach. Instead, he asked questions. Why do you measure your life the way you do? Who taught you what success looks like? What would you do if you weren't afraid of disappointing anyone? These questions unsettled Daniel more than any argument ever had. One morning, Daniel admitted something he had never said out loud. "I feel like I'm running out of time," he said quietly, "like I made choices on autopilot and now I'm stuck with them." Arthur nodded. "Time doesn't disappear," he said. "Perspective does." Daniel looked confused. Arthur smiled. "Let me tell you something. When I was your age, I had the job everyone wanted. Corner office, salary people bragged about, and I hated waking up every day." Daniel leaned in. "So what did you do?" he asked. Arthur chuckled softly. "Nothing, for a long time." Then Arthur's expression changed. "Until one morning, I watched a man across the street lose his shoe while chasing a bus. He stopped, laughed at himself, picked it up, and walked away smiling. And for some reason, that moment broke me." Daniel blinked. "Why?" "Because I realized something," Arthur said. "That man had lost something minor and gained joy. I had everything and felt nothing." Arthur looked directly at Daniel. "That day, I understood that happiness isn't about changing your life first. It's about changing how you see it." Daniel felt something shift inside him. That night, he couldn't sleep. Arthur's words echoed in his mind. Perspective does. Daniel began noticing things he had ignored for years. The way sunlight moved across his living room floor in the afternoon. The sound of birds near his office parking lot. The small relief he felt when meetings ended early. These things didn't change his life, but they changed how it felt. Still, something deeper stirred inside him. One evening, while cleaning out an old storage box, Daniel found a sketchbook. Inside were drawings, rough, imperfect, but expressive. He remembered now. In his 20s, Daniel loved drawing. Not professionally, not for money, just for the joy of it. He had stopped when life got busy, when practicality took over. That night, he sat at his kitchen table and drew for the first time in nearly 15 years. He didn't realize how much he had missed it until his chest felt lighter. The next morning, Daniel told Arthur. Arthur smiled knowingly. "You didn't lose time," he said. "You lost attention." Weeks passed. Daniel started drawing every evening, sometimes for 10 minutes, sometimes for an hour. He didn't post it online, he didn't try to monetize it, he just did it. And something unexpected happened. He felt present. Then came the decision. One afternoon, Daniel's manager called him into the office. She said, "An opportunity opened up. Senior role, more responsibility, more money. It's the next step." Daniel nodded automatically. This was what he was supposed to want. But for the first time in his life, he felt a pause inside him. He asked for a day to think about it. That night, Daniel walked through his neighborhood, sketchbook under his arm. He sat on a bench and watched the sunset, and he asked himself a question Arthur had planted weeks ago. What would you do if you weren't afraid of disappointing anyone? The answer scared him. He realized he didn't want the promotion, not because it was bad, but because it would pull him further away from the quiet, meaningful life he was rediscovering. The next morning, Daniel declined the offer. The consequences were immediate and complicated. Some coworkers were confused. "You're crazy," one said. "That's career suicide." His parents were concerned. "Are you unhappy?" his mother asked. "Do you need help?" Daniel didn't know how to explain that he was happier than he'd been in years. Without the promotion, Daniel had more mental space, less pressure, fewer late nights. He used that space carefully. He joined a local art group, not to impress anyone, but to connect. He volunteered on weekends, sketching portraits for seniors at a community center. Many of them hadn't been drawn in decades. One woman cried when she saw her portrait. "I forgot what it felt like to be seen," she said. Daniel understood that feeling deeply. One morning, he arrived at the coffee shop and Arthur wasn't there. The next day, still no Arthur. On the third day, Daniel asked the barista. "Oh," she said gently, "Arthur passed away last week, heart condition. He used to come here every morning." Daniel felt a lump in his throat. He sat by the window, staring at the empty chair. On the table was a small notebook. Inside, on the first page, was a note. Perspective doesn't change what you see. It changes what you notice. Daniel closed the notebook slowly. Arthur had never told him what to do. He had simply helped him see differently. Daniel's life didn't transform overnight. He didn't quit his job. He didn't move across the country. He didn't become famous or wealthy. What changed was quieter and more powerful. He stopped waiting for a better life and started paying attention to the one he already had. He learned that dissatisfaction isn't always a sign that something is wrong. Sometimes it's a sign that you're not fully present. Perspective didn't erase Daniel's responsibilities. It reframed them. He still worked, still paid bills, still had bad days, but now he understood something most people never stop to question. Life isn't shaped only by the decisions you make. It's shaped by the meaning you assign to them. You can live the same life in two completely different ways, depending on how you see it. Daniel still visits the coffee shop. He sits by the window sometimes, watching the light move across the street, and he wonders how many people walk past that moment every day without noticing it. So here's the question he now asks himself, and maybe you should ask too. If nothing in your life changed tomorrow, would changing your perspective be enough to change how it feels?